This meeting has been called to order, a meeting of the City of Lawrence Redevelopment Commission. The chair determines that there is a quorum. The first order of business is approval of the May meeting minutes. Are there any questions about the May minute meetings? All in favor of approving the May meeting minutes, please say aye.
I was just going to say, should we make a motion quick?
Oh, can someone make a
I'll make
motion
a motion to approve the May minutes.
approve the May meeting minutes? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Looks like the minutes have been approved. Say May minute meetings 3 times fast. That's really fast. Now we're going to move on to approval of claims and purchase orders for payment. We have a number. Would you like to, Keith, go over the claims and purchase orders for payment?
Yes. In addition to my consulting fees and our counsel, it is a collection of the various bond payments that need to occur. Brief summary.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion for approval of claims and purchase orders for payment?
Move.
Second. All in favor of approving the claims and purchase orders for payment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They're approved.
Great.
We have old business, which we've done already, correct?
Yeah, I'll ask that we punt that to next meeting.
Okay, great. We have new business. Mr. Johnson, can you please present the director's report?
Hi, everyone. The first thing I wanted to share is an announcement taking place in Alexander Park, which is behind Alexander Screw in our district, and the mayor's hosting a back-to-school event with the trustee, so it's a barbecue from noon to 3 on Sunday, July 28th, so this Sunday, and they're doing backpacks and giveaways for school supplies. There is another announcement event. 1 second. Indigo is confirming they did a Purple Line kickoff, so they have made it official. So Thursday, October 17th at 10 a.m. will be the ribbon cutting for the Purple Line.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I wanted to go over a few things. I continue to have a parcel hunt, which is call on every single available parcel that pops up along the pike to get a quote and see if we can piece together some of the businesses I've been meeting with who want to come and locate. You will likely see a proposal regarding the land in front and behind Monarch, really working and focusing on that land, and have been talking to a number of folks, including another city entity, about seeing what we can do there. The actual building itself is listed, and Monarch the owners of the actual building have had a few bites, but no big users, no main tenants for announcement for the main parcel yet. We continue to meet with NDOT regularly about the medians on Pendleton Pike, and Sarah has volunteered herself to help lead this commission's efforts on future landscaping. But that's going to be our agreement with the city and NDOT, is that we will take on the challenge of landscaping the medians and the cost of that. Purple Line, as you heard, nice announcement. I'll explain last month's meeting next, and then you'll hear a presentation on an overlay district, and potentially an Alexander Park master plan update will go to the Parks Board. It'll be in conjunction with the firm that you're going to hear from. You guys were kind enough to help send the mayor and I to D.C., Kansas City. Kansas City was the U.S. Conference of Mayors annual meeting, where we had a number of ideas from around the country. And in Washington, D.C., we spent an hour with Congressman Carson and U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg in his office on what we're doing for the city and the available federal funds and grants and programs, and how they might be able to support us. Thank you for that. I've had a number of meetings on electric vehicle charging stations. So we are working with various applications in the state on how and where they will be, and the potential uses for that. So don't have a proposal for you yet. It's going to be a few years process that those get rolled out, but it's on our mind to have some fast charging stations along the pike. Good. It's a good report. It's a good month.
It is.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Johnson? All right.
Next item on the agenda, we had a presentation last month from the engineering firm, HWC, and we've heard about the trade district, we heard about what was going on in the plans, and so I wanted to do a brief summary. The main gist of this would be connecting Record Street. This is a proposal. This is what the prior commission had designed, and so with these designs, we then take this and it can become an application for state federal funding. We would probably provide the match, which could be 20% of the costs, and that's projected to be $15 million. So we may have to piece together multiple funding sources to try to pull this off. But the main idea would be to continue Record Street and then to work with the property owner here to acquire this land, and it would be another outlet on the Pendleton Pike. So it would help with traffic flow, connections into Franklin Road, and ease some of the traffic on Pendleton Pike. The main gist of it. So we had a nice discussion afterwards, and the firm went through the details and their process and the next steps and why the last commission and director left off. And it makes a lot of sense. It was essentially time to start going through the land acquisition process. And so since it's going to be change of administrations, they basically hit pause at the end of last year and said, if you guys want to continue this, you can become. So I would anticipate that if the city, if we're going to prioritize this, if we're going to pursue funding, that we'll come back and start that process. Not ready yet for a go on that, but definitely I'm convinced that it's a worthy project and something we should consider.
What's the timeline?
I think it's going to be where does this fit in the city's application to the MPO and the pursuit of federal funding? And if we have a shot, will this be worth our $3 to $4 million spend to go get that additional funds?
The other component would be, we talked about this a little bit, and just for clarity, that was not a meeting because we did not have a quorum. So those members who were here just met and received some of that information directly. But there would be a process for acquisition of the right-of-way. Kind of talk through that process. You have probably a 9 to 12 month minimum process from kind of final design, push and go until you have appraisals, you have uniform offers, and you kind of work through that right-of-way acquisition. So that would be your lead time for that right-of-way acquisition, at which time you need funding to acquire the properties, and you need the funding to complete the kind of design. And my understanding was they hadn't gone through parcel by parcel and created legal descriptions yet of what would need to be acquired. So there would be a little bit of lead time for that, but yeah, probably 9 months on the short end and maybe as long as 18 months kind of until you would have title and be ready to break ground.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Are there any questions about that or anything you guys wanted to add?
What's the status of, I guess maybe this is connected, what is the status of the work on Pendleton Pike? I know there's some things in the middle of of Pendleton Pike, and just curious about the status of the federal grant that is being used to upgrade.
So the main project is safety project, and so it's medians up and down the pike, and they're doing it in different segments. So they're starting at the 56th Street intersection along the pike. They're going to work their way down and up to Sunnyside.
Gotcha.
So NDOT is handling that and doing all that, and so that work will be this summer into next year. Might be headaches for the businesses. They are working with us on public safety and those kinds of process, and then our commitment is basically the landscaping. So they said they'd give us a cement slab, or they'd give us beds that we could landscape. Chose the landscape option.
Gotcha. Great, awesome. Okay, and now I think next is the REA overlay proposal.
Great. Thank you, guys. We have a representative from REA here, Kristen Self, but a summary of the proposal and kind of the origination. So, and Russell can back me up as a practicing zoning lawyer, but this is our first shot in the Whitfield administration of looking at our planning and zoning. And we wanted to start with this because it's long been discussed in this city, that what are the types of uses we want along Pendleton Pike? What are the businesses, and how does it look, and how does it feel? This is our key artery and gateway to the city. So with your help today, we will begin a process to look at the uses allowed and to consider new design standards and new allowed uses for future use along the pike. It'll be a multi-step process that'll have engagement that would eventually go to the Lawrence Common Council and downtown to the Metropolitan Development Commission. So this kicks off a process, and that's essentially what the proposal is and what the scope of services will be. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'll add just a little bit. So one thing that Indiana code allows and many communities take advantage of is what we call an overlay district. So instead of going in and changing parcel by parcel the zoning that exists on those parcels, you go through and say, hey, these are the design standards that we want along here. So any new construction, improvements, expansions have to meet these new standards. And we also would potentially consider eliminating certain uses. So for example, the city of Indianapolis has a transit-oriented district overlay, and you have prohibited uses within that district. You can't have for example, you can't have a gas station in a district that's part of the transit overlay district. You have limitations on other businesses. Hotels can be no bigger than 100 rooms in that overlay district. Even if their underlying zoning classification would allow them to be 500 rooms, they have a limitation in that narrow confined area. So one of the things we talked about, and we met with the mayor and this consultant about 4 or 5 weeks ago, was we have uses that we think along Pendleton Pike, which is why it's here for your consideration in this this TIF district. What type of uses do we want to attract? What type of standards do we want to put in place in such a way that doesn't eliminate anything that exists today, but sets the standards going forward, and would this is a tool available to you, never used in the city of Lawrence, so it'd be a new use here, but also given the state of the law as it relates to planning and zoning in Marion County, need to have someone help guide the city through that process. And so that would be the charge of this consultant that's before you. So it is a tool utilized in a lot of places. I can tell you almost every place that I practiced in the donut counties, their main corridors, they have an overlay district that says these are the standards you'll comply with. These are the uses we don't want to see there, and these are the things that we want to. And so I think the city of Lawrence would not be out of step with other communities if this were to be adopted or considered and adopted in the city. So,
Does anyone have any questions? I have a few questions, actually, if you don't mind. So what are some of the downsides of an overlay proposal? I know some of the positives, but are there any downsides to the overlay proposal?
I'll take this.
sure. Downsides obviously would be, it's going to be a change. So you have, it could, a long historic use at a location, if somebody wanted to sell it, somebody wanted to expand, it would perhaps create a layer that they might have to come back and ask for additional approvals from the city. I don't know that that's necessarily
It's a good thing. Yeah.
that could be a good side from the municipal side. It could be a downside from the private industry side, perhaps. It's an unknown, so it'd be a new process for the city to administer, for businesses to understand what it is. So I think that would be a downside, just the learning curve of it.
Why don't you think we've used this, or the prior administrations have used it in Lawrence if all of the donut counties are using it?
Do you want me to give you the real answer or the answer that's appropriate for a public meeting? I think it has long been just because Lawrence has some control over their own zoning, but not a lot of control over their own zoning. And so, frankly, the Metropolitan Development Commission, which I regularly practice in front of, so I'm not speaking ill of them, but they are focused on things that are going on in Indianapolis proper. And there's just never been an impetus or the political courage for an administration to kind of take this on. So I think that's why it's never been done in Lawrence. It's never going to be something that downtown does on their own for the benefit of the city. And I think that previous administrations just haven't made it a priority, haven't considered it as a tool in their toolbox.
What are some possible, and this is my last question, thank you, I'm clear, totally understand this, and this seems like a really good idea, but just for the public's benefit, what are some types of businesses that we could say are banned or are only acceptable in an overlay proposal?
Yeah, so I think you could do things like limiting the display of outdoor materials or outdoor products for sale in an outdoor. So you might be able to require, for example, you couldn't have more display space outside than you have in conjunction with an indoor space. So you couldn't have, 30,000 square feet of outdoor space with a 3,000 square foot building. And so you could perhaps, bring that more in line so it's not just a sea of asphalt up and down Pendleton Pike. You could require, so that would be the types of, maybe it's not a type, but maybe it is, you move towards what's more called form-based zoning. So we're not as concerned about what you do inside the building, but we are concerned about how it appears and how it looks and how it relates to the street, what kind of ratios you have from open space to covered to asphalt surfaces or hard surface percentages. So those may be types of things. I'm not up here trying to write the overlay district, but I think those would be types of considerations that would be, and a lot of communities have it where you have additional architectural requirements that are there. So again, they may not care about what goes on in the building. They don't care if it's a dentist office or a child care center or a law firm. They care about what it presents to the street, how parking is oriented to the right-of-way. It may be required to be more of it behind the building instead of all in front of the building and those types of things.
So if I'm not mistaken, gives us the power to increase the standards.
It would be an increase in standards, absolutely, and it could include prohibited uses.
Got you. Any other follow-up questions? Thank you so much.
Just have one, please. The end product will be a proposal, correct, of what the REA recommends for zoning practices, right?
Yeah, what the ultimate end deliverable would be a proposed ordinance and next steps, because part of the unknown is how does the city kind of take this action related to an overlay district given the current status of planning and zoning law in Marion County. So that's part of why you have an outside consultant assisting you, is because it is a little bit of an unknown. Hasn't been tried in the city of Lawrence, so I think that's why having an outside consultant to assist it. So ultimately, I would anticipate it would be a draft ordinance that would go to the City of Lawrence Common Council, ultimately to the Metropolitan Development Commission, as well as a roadmap of who's responsible for what and how the process will work.
I have one more question. What happens in the adoption phase?
The adoption phase would be that phase of the City Council, Lawrence Common Council approving it, MDC, and ultimately the City County Council probably approving it. So that would be the adoption phase of the project.
So the services rendered in that phase would basically be on retainer to answer questions, and
They would present each step of the way for us with me.
thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Can I introduce Kristen Self from our...
Absolutely.
You want to come talk about your firm a little bit? Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon, you guys. I won't take long. I know it's Lovely summer afternoon. So my name is Kristen Self. I'm the Director of Business Development at REA. We're Rundell Ernstberger Associates, but we're trying to modernize like everyone else and go by REA. We have two offices, one in downtown Indianapolis and another based in Louisville. We do projects all over the country, all the way from Honolulu, Hawaii, which I'm trying to get a junket to upstate New York. And really, the firm specializes in landscape architecture, urban planning, zoning. So the partner who wrote up this proposal for you and who will be the point of contact from the firm, we have 7 partners, about 35 employees, but the partner who will be leading the charge on this project is Cynthia Bowen, and she's not here today because she's on a mission trip with her church and is gone for a couple of weeks. So she really is a leader in her field in terms of planning and zoning rewrites. She actually is served as the past president of the American Association of, I want to make sure I get it right, the American Planning Association. So she really is a leader in her field, and she's very collaborative. We're looking forward, obviously, to working with the community, hearing what the community needs. I was telling Keith just before the meeting started that I actually lived in McCordsville, so really looking forward to this change. I think I could have made Pendleton Pike with my eyes closed, although that could have been dangerous at some point. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm also a poor substitute for Cynthia in this case, but I did want to introduce our firm. We've done some projects like the Downtown Indianapolis Cultural Trail, the Monon, the Carmel Chris Kindle Market, Switchyard Park in Bloomington, Campus Marshes in Detroit, Michigan. We really care about, making places and spaces where communities can come together and where it's safe and something that the community really wants. So that's what we're looking forward to working with you all on. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but like I said, I'm probably a poor substitute.
I'd like to go to Honolulu too.
I know, right? If I get an invitation, I'll make sure I hit you up.
I'll say no.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you all for your time.
Well, thank you.
One quick question.
One quick question, I'm sorry.
Sorry. And I recognize that you may not know this, but in the proposal here, it does outlay like a timeline, the month stipulated for each of the phases. What is the expectation of that being pretty dead on, or what are some of the things that can come up to kind of roadblock the kind of process?
Yeah, I would say that we try to stick pretty closely to the timeline. It's like obviously setting some of these meetings with, for community engagement, I feel like might be the biggest piece that could, hold some things up, but then it's like we can always kind of, adjust as we move forward as well. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
We'll hold them accountable on their delivery. Our partnership with the Metropolitan Development will be probably the questionable, the thing. There's probably a set of 5 or 6 things at the city that we need to work on, and zoning and the administrative approval process and a handful of things. So this is a tangible component to our conversations with DMD about a number of zoning matters.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I think that this is like a really sensible and prudent decision, and I look forward to the process, and any way that we can be helpful, please let us know.
Great. Should the board take a vote on the? Yeah.
All right. Can I have a motion for the REA overlay proposal?
I move to approve the agreement for the overlay proposal.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Looks like the ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other business to come before the commission?
Keith, I'll give you just a heads up more than anything. So Keith and I have had multiple conversations about potential changes to the economic development plans that this body is responsible for adopting, updating, modifying. And so we have probably one proposal, one concept. Probably need to get an executive session scheduled to talk with the commission about things that are a potential. And part of that would be a process for kind of laying out a new economic development plan, what that looks like. So I think I wanted to give you kind of a heads up that that's probably coming. I will share with the commission some examples of other economic development plans that I've authored for other communities, just so you understand kind of the scope of them. And then as we start talking about areas that we would potentially add a new economic development area or modify existing economic development plans, you at least have in your mind what those look like. But I wanted to give you a heads up that that's probably something that's forthcoming based on some of the conversations Keith has had with interested businesses. So I'll share those with the commission, and then I'm happy to answer questions that you have after you've looked at them, or explanations of why we do certain things. But I think that would be helpful for you to at least have some other examples. Frankly, we are having challenges chasing down some of the existing plans for the city. So that's part of the delay in at least one of those areas. But it is something that'll be forthcoming and that will be on your plate sooner than later.
Okay. I do want, does anyone have any questions for that point? I do want to take a point of personal privilege and just acknowledge Mayor Whitfield, the hardest working mayor in Marion County.
Hi, Mayor.
Just wanted to acknowledge you. If you would like to say a few words or. And again, I'll say the hardest working mayor in Marion County.
Good afternoon, everyone. One of the things that I want to say is thank you for your service, thank you for your commitment, and thank you for understanding what this Whitfield administration is trying to do for Lawrence. Opening the doors for businesses, opening the doors for us to continue to grow, to be developed into a city that we see that we can entice businesses to come here. There's certain things that we have to get in order. And as you can see, we're trying the best to open the doors and to make that happen. Sometimes there is going to be an opportunity where you may have to make a difficult decision, and I understand that. But the questions that you asked gave me the opportunity to listen, and the questions were very open so that you can understand how important it is when you make your decision. So I want to thank you for that. Pendleton Pike is the first exit off of 465, and that's the first entryway into our city. And so what we're planning to do, I think, and what you voted on today will give us that opportunity. So I want to thank you for that. And there's more to come, so just be ready. But we really want to thank you. I want to thank you because it's a great opportunity for our city. When you talk about redevelopment, talk about enticing business to come to Lawrence, we need to make sure that we'll be able to do that. So thank you again for your commitment and understanding. And remember, no question is a dumb question. So please continue to ask that for guidance so that you can make the right decision. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other business to come before the commission? All right. Do we have public comment? Anyone wants to speak? Seeing none, I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's over.